loyalty,
duty,
respect,
selfless service, honor,
integrity,
and personal courage.
What is going on, everyone? This is Staff Sergeant Noda with the United States Army National Guard, and we are back for another edition of Not Your Average Joe's podcast. I am joined by my guests, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Fippen, Lieutenant Michael Leeper, and my co-host for today, Lieutenant Michael Joyner. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time out of your busy schedules to join us today on another edition of Not Your Average Joe's. I guess we'll call this IMPD edition. That's pretty cool. Could you guys tell us a little bit about your decisions for joining the Indian Army National Guard? And of course, you served for 24 years, right, sir, in the Indian Army National Guard before switching to the Army Reserves?
That is correct.
Could you guys tell us a little bit why you decided to join the military in the Indian Army National Guard?
Well, back in 1990 when I joined, I felt a need to serve. I wanted to get out and see the world, have some good educational benefits, just get a feel for what existed out there. And the Guard was a very good venue to experience all that and see the world.
That's awesome. Lieutenant Leeper, I know you came to us actually from the Marine Corps over to the Army National Guard. What was your decision for joining the military and then switching over to the Army National Guard, sir?
So when I enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves as a radio operator. I had a 9-year break in service from the Marine Corps Reserve before I decided to come into the National Guard. It had always been I guess an ambition for me to want to be an officer in the military.
Right.
I can think of like no greater calling than leading men and women in combat. So that was something that just kind of laid in the back of my head as I took a 9-year break in service and had the chance to join the Guard. The Guard had a lot of opportunities because, as you know, I'm a full-time police officer for IMPD. So I had the opportunity to not quit my job or continue to do what I do and then also at the same time serve in the military. That was a big driving factor of why I decided with the Guard and the opportunities that the Guard had because of the size of it.
That's so amazing, sir.
So, sir, gentlemen, you said you had a sense of service. Did that something that grew when you joined the Guard, or did that something that you grew up with?
I felt I grew up with that. My father was a Marine during the Vietnam era, so I grew up hearing these stories and the camaraderie and seeing a lot of that. And I just felt a need to do something more, to be a part of something bigger. The National Guard presented that opportunity and a lot of more things we could do for our community. Having served a couple combat tours, spent 24 years in the National Guard, I was able to fulfill a lot of that need of service.
Yeah, so I think like what he's talking about, I had some lineage too that was in the service, but I think it's a unique breed of people that decide to place selfless service above all. And you see that in public service. You see that in people that are in the military. I think it's kind of ingrained into someone's DNA, wanting to do something more than just for themselves. So, I mean, I think that part of the reason why I chose to do it was because it was always, like I said, it was a like a fulfillment that wasn't met,
right?
You know. So
right,
even though I do it every day as a police officer, having the opportunity to do it on the military side, it just broadens that, you know.
Okay.
So you wanted to serve, obviously, both community as a law enforcement officer, but also, you know, a greater community. So the state with the Indiana National Guard, and then the nation as a member of the armed forces. Is that would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you guys are both commissioned officers, obviously police officers and commissioned officers in the Army National Guard and the Army Reserves, respectively, sir. So could you please tell us about your commissioning process and what that was like for each one of you?
Well, I commissioned through the Indiana Military Academy back in 1998.
Wow.
Started in 97 with now Colonel, newly promoted Jeff Kumler, a good friend of mine. So I went through that entire process of 18 months, got to experience that time at Camp Atterbury as well as Fort Benning, Georgia. Lots of push-ups, walking the white line.
Sand Hill.
But a great experience. And I also was a Mustang, so I was enlisted initially, made it to E5, then went to OCS. So that experience helped a lot develop the desire to serve, to lead, to mentor and coach. That was a great process.
That's awesome. So you actually have something in common with Lieutenant Joyner because you made it to sergeant as well, right, sir?
Yep.
So you guys are both Mustangs. And Lieutenant Leeper, you were also enlisted, right?
I was, yes.
So what were you? What pay grade did you make it into the Marine Corps?
I was an
Reserves?
E3.
Okay, good deal. And you switched over to the Army National Guard as an 09 Sierra, right?
I did. Yes.
So did you go?
Actually, I actually changed. I came into the Guard as an 11 Bravo.
Really?
So I actually came into the Guard, enlisted, and then did the entire commissioning process after I was already enlisted in the Guard.
Really? I wasn't aware of that. So 11 Bravo, for those that are listening, is infantry. So you came in as an enlisted infantryman, and then you dropped your officer candidate package to switch over to OCS. Which commissioning route did you go through, sir?
So I did the accelerated OCS program at Fort McClellan, Alabama. So for those of you that are not familiar with that, it's an 8-week intensive program that's hosted at Fort McClellan, Alabama. That's only for National Guard and reservists, unlike the other commissioning programs, which also include active duty component. It was pretty tough days down there at Fort McClellan in the middle of Alabama in June and July. But I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. I think that it was, while it was a very rigorous and tough program, that's generally focused upon prior active or prior service soldiers that go through that program and people that have a pretty high PFT rating. It was a good program. I learned a lot through it.
That's so awesome.
Okay, gentlemen, can you tell me a little bit about some of the positions that you served as a traditional officer in the Indiana Army National Guard?
Well, I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to have had several positions in the National Guard. Now I'm currently an infantry officer and an intelligence officer. I have 2 branches.
Wow.
But when I was enlisted, I started off as a medic, a 96 series. And then I went to intelligence in the 38th Division. So I had some experience doing a lot of things, as well as some ADOS, full-time work and on the time of 38th Division. Lots of experiences.
That's so cool. So you've been able to do so much, because you've been in for how long now, sir?
I just started my 31st year last week.
I saw that on
Nice.
Facebook. I think 31 years of service to our country and community in the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve. That's so amazing, sir. And we're truly glad to have you. Seriously,
I'm
Thank you
that
so much.
old.
Not not old at all.
Experience, not old.
I like that term better.
Lieutenant Leeper, how about you, sir?
So when I commissioned, my first assignment was as a heavy weapons platoon leader down in Washington, Indiana with Delta Company, one of the 151.
Wow.
And prior to that, I had absolutely no experience with heavy weapons and didn't really know what a heavy weapons company was. My first drill after getting assigned there as a platoon leader was JRTC in Fort Polk, Louisiana. So while it was trial by fire, I learned a lot. I loved my heavy weapons time. And then I transferred to Charlie Company, one of the 151 here in Indianapolis, as a light platoon leader for an infantry platoon. Those are the 2 positions that I've had since I've been in the Guard, and both of them have been phenomenal. I've had a great experience with both of them.
That's so it's amazing the amount of experiences that you both have had in the Army National Guard. So Lieutenant Colonel Flippin, you're in 05. You're a Lieutenant Colonel. You're probably a lifer at this point. Is that safe to assume?
That is
Are you
very
thinking
safe.
about retiring from the military? Where do you see your career going once you retire, sir?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm currently battalion commander right now with the 2100 Military Intelligence Group over at Attachment 3. And next step would be the 06 Board for Full Bird Colonel. That look is this fall.
Oh, wow.
In the zone look. And my goal now is to just serve at the needs of the organization and help mentor young future leaders like Lieutenant Leeper and some senior NCOs, because NCOs still drive the military. So we work for the soldiers.
Right.
My goal is just to keep serving and keep supporting the organization and filling the needs of the soldiers.
Absolutely, sir. Lieutenant Leeper, how about yourself?
Yeah, so like what Lieutenant Colonel Flippin was talking about, he's a large portion of the reason why I'm in the military right now is because of his mentorship towards me. I saw what he did. I saw his career pathing and the way that he went, and it drove a spark in me that I wanted to do similar to what he has done.
Sure.
So, along that same lines, I think that anybody that chooses to be an infantry officer, hopefully that your end goal is that you're here for the soldiers, that you're here for troop welfare. I see myself right now where I'm at and just in the career pathing. I'd like to, at some point in time in the near future, switch over to a specialized platoon leader position, whether it be mortars or scouts, and then segue into a command position at that 03 level, and then probably a staff position. My goal is to get as many years out of the Guard as I possibly can. I've genuinely enjoyed my experience since I've been in. I've been able to attend anything that I've put in for. I'm slated to go to Ranger School for next year, and it's been an awesome experience so far.
That's so incredible. Now, did you guys pick? You mentioned you have 2 branches, sir. Your military intelligence and infantry. You saw infantry. Did you pick your basic officer branches, or how did that process work for both of you?
Well, for me, it was initially a selection course based on how you were replaced in the OCS graduation process. I was high enough. I got military intelligence first, and I picked infantry second.
Okay. And so then you have basically had both those careers now?
Correct. After being assigned to the 76th Brigade, that's Infantry Combat Brigade,
Good
so being an
choice.
infantry officer was a good choice.
Absolutely.
I have to support General Carr's mission.
That's perfect. Lieutenant Leeper, did you pick infantry officer?
So yes, I did. So it was a little bit different for me because I went through the accelerated OCS program. The traditional program for OCS, they put their wish list of, I think, 5 picks,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So they do 5 picks, and then after they do their 5 picks, they get branched based off of the needs of the Army National Guard. Now, for me, I still did the 5 picks, but I knew what my branch was prior to going to OCS. So before I even commissioned, I knew what I was going to branch. And infantry was the number 1 pick that I picked for branching.
What was your motivation for infantry, sir?
So I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I'm sure there's people out there listening to this that's probably seen Band of Brothers, right?
It's a good movie.
I felt that there was no greater calling than being able to lead soldiers in a combat environment. And I knew that whenever I enlisted into the Army National Guard and then commissioned as an officer, that I wanted to do what in my mind was the hardest and the toughest, and had the opportunity to be most intricately involved with leading soldiers. And I can think of no other branch or MOS than that is the infantry.
So after you go through, obviously basic combat training, which you went through, and then OCS, you go through IBOLC, right?
Yeah, so Infantry Basic Officers Leaders Course at Fort Benning, Georgia. It's a 19-week course down at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I can honestly say that that's one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And most people that have been in the military can probably say that they wouldn't probably do most of the schools that they've gone through a second time over again. I would do IBOLC a second time over again. I met friends that I will keep for life. And it's nice to 4.5 months, while it seems long, you get indoctrinated into just Army life. And it was an excellent experience, and I think that realistically it prepared me to be able to lead soldiers into combat. Would you agree?
Yeah, it was a great experience. Leader Forge was just amazing. So I loved IBOLC, and it was just something I would do again. Leader Forge.
What is
like I said.
Leader Forge? I've never heard of that.
So Leader Forge is that exercise at the end of it where it's a culminating event, right?
Yes.
So you basically get your op order, you do everything that you've done before, and then you go out, you ruck march for like the whole entire night. It felt like it took forever.
Man.
And then you come up onto your objective, your alpha your assembly area, alpha was what we called it. And then from there, you put your rucksack down, and then you go to it. You start to complete the mission. But by that time, you're completely tired. Some people are just falling asleep, standing up. And then from there, it's game on.
And that's the end of IBOLC, essentially?
Yeah, pretty much.
How was your experience, Lieutenant Colonel Phippen? How was yours?
Over OCS, I was in the police academy at the time, so I had a balance being a police academy young recruit officer as well as an OCS candidate. So I bounced back and forth between IMA, Fort Benning, Georgia, the Indianapolis Police Academy. Very challenging times, but very good experiences.
Wow, that sounds like so you juggled everything, sir.
And I was finishing my bachelor's degree at the time too, so I was in college.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, sirs, I'm sorry.
Sir.
Of course, I have it. Anyway, so your duty as officers in the Indiana Army National Guard, how has that affected your civilian careers?
That's a great question. I thought a lot about this because being good at one makes you better at the other, I think, and that goes both ways. And also, we've got a lot of peers and friendships that are also police officers in the military. They kind of overlap. The military and police are kind of distant cousins. They kind of go together. I think I've learned a lot of valuable leadership lessons as a military officer through the Command General Staff College, through Officer Basic, through the command and being enlisted. I've learned a lot from the police academy that I've taken into combat, going on patrols in Afghanistan and Iraq, and having the tactics I learned in the police academy aided my profession as a military service member as well. They mutually benefit one another tremendously.
Symbiotic relationship then, essentially, sir?
They are, yes.
That's phenomenal. Lieutenant Leeper, would you have the same thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I definitely would echo what Lieutenant Colonel Phippen said. I kind of see it as like police officers are guardians and soldiers are warriors, and like he said, kind of those distant cousins. and I agree with him that it's mutually that has made me better on both fronts. So because I'm a soldier and a leader of soldiers, I've been a better leader of police officers. You know, in the position I serve in the police department, I have the opportunity to lead some of the greatest men and women that I've ever had the opportunity to be around in my life. And I have no doubt that the experiences that I've learned from the military and the leadership that I've gotten from my time in the Army now has helped me to lead them in critical incidents, that it's made me just all around a better police officer. Vice versa, when I came to the military, it was a very comfortable and natural feeling to be able to lead people based off of my experiences that I had as a police officer.
Right. Now, if I understand or remember correctly, sir, you actually went through the OCS process while you were the lieutenant in charge of the IMPD training facility. Is that right?
So I went through the OCS process when I was a sergeant at the training academy. I was the physical fitness coordinator at the IMPD training academy when I was going through the OCS process.
So was your OCS process, did any of that influence the training at IMPD, you think?
Absolutely. So at the time, like I said, I was the physical fitness coordinator, and I just went through accelerated OCS. So unfortunately for those recruits, when I came back, they got the experience.
I may have heard stories.
They got to experience a lot of the workouts that we did during OCS. But you know, I can say that alone made me a lot better at my job on the civilian side. And vice versa. I think it helped me significantly during the OCS program that I was a police officer on IMPD, and I had a job where basically I got paid to work out every single day and train recruits, and now I'm going through OCS. So they were definitely compatible.
That's so cool. What is, if there was one experience you've had in the Army National Guard, or you served the Army National Guard and the Army Reserves that you really, you remember the rest of your life, what would that experience be for either one of you?
There's been so many. One that's relevant to this conversation we're having today is Lieutenant Leeper not only helps be a peer for me for Indianapolis Police Department
Right.
and the military, but also I was able to pin him as a lieutenant, which is a great experience.
Really?
So I was able to help mentor, coach him in the military process and bring him up because we have to build the future leaders of this organization. That's one that's relevant to this conversation that sticks out.
That's all. Lieutenant Lieber, how about yourself, sir?
Well, before I even knew what he was getting ready to say, I was going to say that the most memorable moment that I've had so far was the day that I commissioned and was pinned as a second lieutenant. At 35 years old, going through accelerated OCS at Fort McClellan, there was a lot of trying days, and there was a lot of trying days in the process where I didn't think that I doubted myself. And when it was done, and to be able to look down and say, I'm a commissioned officer in the United States Army and the Army National Guard, that's an unbelievable achievement sometimes to think about. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I have the opportunity to every day interact and lead soldiers that are just amazing people. And I don't say that just as sitting here giving an interview. I truly believe that. I see that, and I see the quality of the individuals that we have in our organization,
Right.
the Army National Guard, and it's a cool experience, but overwhelmingly, I would say the day that I achieved that, just like anybody else, the day you get that Ranger tab or whatever it is that you've worked and strived so hard for, that for me it was the day that I commissioned.
Were either of you able to use any of your educational benefits that you got from the Army National Guard?
Oh, I could talk all day about this. Being in 30 years, going on 31 years, I was able to be afforded several benefits from the U.S. Army in my combat tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, 9/11 GI Bill benefits. The military experience paid for my master's degree.
Wow.
And I'm working on a doctorate, I think, next.
Really?
And there's still benefits I can pass down to my children. I cannot express how wonderful it is to have these assets and benefits, not just educational benefits, but the other benefits from serving. It's
Wow.
great for your family. It's great for your education, professional development. It's really key.
So some of those educational benefits, sir, you're actually able to pass down to your family?
Yes, my daughter now is attending Ball State on some
Chirp.
on some benefits I passed to her. My son will be attending college next year on some benefits, and I'll still be able to obtain probably another master's or professional doctorate degree as well.
That's phenomenal, sir, and I'm so glad that your service to our country community has been able to help you with paying for those. Lieutenant Lieber, how about yourself, sir? Have you been able to use some of the educational benefits of the Army National Guard?
Yes. So when I came in, I had the student loan reimbursement. So I had student loan debt that was taken care of whenever I enlisted into the Guard. And I will tell you that I was actually surprised because it was almost an overnight process. Basically, once I got paperwork done and submitted, it was like within a very short period of time that my tuition assistance and my loans were gone. They were wiped clean.
Government efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that with the benefits that you get from the National Guard complement the benefits you get being a law enforcement officer? So the TRICARE, the pension, would you say that those are again, symbiotic, they're beneficial? Are you using both of those as well, sir?
Very much. I do use TRICARE. It's a great opportunity over our police department insurance. That's one example of benefit. But again, they're mutually supportive of one another. They're very good assets and benefits to have as a soldier.
So you're just maximizing your benefits, sir?
Yes, sir. I am.
So, like Lieutenant Colonel said, I use a lot of the benefits that the military has. I actually don't use the TRICARE just because, like he talked about, how they're almost compatible with one another. Not having children, it's actually more beneficial for me to use the police department's insurance. But
Sure.
Part of the reason why I chose to do what I did in regards to coming into the National Guard is that realistically, the same day I retire from the police department, I'd like to retire from the Army and have the benefits that are associated with retiring from the Army, and then using the TRICARE Reserve or the retiree insurance. But one of the benefits that I do use and I do contribute a lot to is the thrift savings plan, and that program right there alone is almost enough for someone to enlist for. I mean, it was. We have something compatible on the police side, and so to have the opportunity to do that at the level on the Army is excellent. It's good.
Sir, we've done 5 or 6 of these podcasts yet, and we actually haven't even talked about the thrift savings plan because I believe all of us have been grandfathered into the old retirement plan where 20 years you get 50% of your pension, 50% of your salary is your pension, but now it's 40% of your salary is your pension, and the Army National Guard or the Army will match up to 5% of your TSP, I believe.
It's called the blended retirement plan,
yes.
correct?
And I actually switched to it. So
Did you
I actually
really?
came over because
I'm old school. I have the old one.
Just simply because the number of years of service, I have the opportunity to make more money
Yes.
in that
Right.
than I do the other one. So I'm a big advocate for it, and I preach to my soldiers all the time about thrift savings and being able to just because of how beneficial that program is on the Army side.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a really good program. And so conversely to your point, I actually didn't come out on top on that. So I had the opportunity to switch over to BRS, and they had a bunch of calculators out there that showed how much you would make based off that, and it didn't come out beneficial for me. So like you said, it's all about what you get out of it at the end of it. So you just have to do that analysis to figure out what you want at the end of it.
Correct.
So Lieutenant Leeper, I know you talked about your time at IMPD Training Academy. Was there any other civilian experiences that transferred over into your military career that helped you out?
Sure. So I have the opportunity every day to work as a shift commander. So I oversee one of the largest shift in the city. I have 56 patrol officers and 6 sergeants that work for me, and that my experiences that I have had as a leader in the military have directly correlated to my leadership style and how I interact every single day on the civilian side. And there's a lot of things that I was taught in OCS and IBullock and just my time and experiences as being a platoon leader that have shaped and molded that leadership style that I talk about, and specifically, especially as an infantry officer, is leadership under very tumultuous circumstances, pressure, or high amounts of stress inoculation. Mm-hmm. And as we know, sometimes that's what police work brings. Mm-hmm. And so just those experiences alone that I have gained from the Army side that I can take over to help de-escalate situations, or both internally and externally, mm-hmm. Have been, invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Sir?
Again, for me, being a law enforcement officer has impacted my military career extensively as well. I have a very unique time with IMPD. I was gone for almost 10 years after 9/11. I was called back to active duty for multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow.
I was a mobilization officer at 1st Army Division East. Again, it's the needs of the nation. We have to serve the needs of the organization. But as Lieutenant Leeper mentioned earlier, being a police officer is protected, and being a soldier is kind of being a warrior. Mm-hmm. And they're both just because it's mutually beneficial. But I've been blessed enough to have good experiences on IMPD that I've taken into this military service as well, dealing with people. In combat, you're focused on a mission. As a police officer, you're focused on service to the community, public relations, understanding what people are going through. There's a lot more to that. Helps you build as a leader and a person. Very, very great opportunities that I've been afforded.
Building that empathy with people.
It is, yes.
Yep.
That leads so phenomenally into the next question, sir. I'm so glad you brought that up. So you're both public servants in your civilian career and in the military. What does service mean to you, sir?
Well, for example, right now we have such a dynamic culture going on with all that's happening in the United States. Service is supporting this nation, supporting our citizens, being there to do what's needed. Being a good public servant is ensuring safety, ensuring security, ensuring the needs are met. Being a good soldier is ensuring the safety of this nation. So being a public service is giving selfless service of yourself and placing others' needs above your needs and organizational needs above your needs. And if you focus on those important things, everything else will fall in place.
That's great. That's perfect, sir.
So, one of the things that I lead by on both sides of the fence, of the Army and the police department, is, and I think like he talked about selfless service. I think that's one of the greatest things any human being can do is selfless service to something more than themselves. Is compassion and sensitivity, strength and courage to do my duty, and compassion and sensitivity in all my relationships, right? So that transpires in both sides of police work and the military, having strength and courage to do one's duty and compassion and sensitivity in every relationship that they have. That is a driving force in what service is to me, right? If you look at that like globally, is that you are basically writing a blank check for people that you don't know, and that blank check is your life. Whether that's in an Army Greens or you're wearing your police blues, is that you're willing to put yourself in front of harm's way for someone that you don't know, and that's what service is to me. It's not about me. It's not about benefits that come along with being in an organization. It's about the willingness to want to help someone that can't help themselves.
So
well said, Lieutenant. Well said.
That's amazing. It's seriously just giving back to someone that you've never met before, in their time of need. A lot of people don't think about that. Police officers go to someone's worst day of their life normally, right? You're going to that 911 call, and you're going to this multiple times a day, and you're there just giving back to your community. I'm truly grateful for everything that you both have done, both in the military and in law enforcement. Sincerely, thank you so much.
You're kind. Thank you.
If there was one piece of advice that either of you could offer to someone thinking about serving their country in any branch of the military, what would that be, sir?
Now you're reading my mind because I was just thinking this. So all the viewers watching this, whether in the service now or thinking about it, I cannot think of a better organization in the United States military, the U.S. Army, Army Reserves, National Guard, to join to serve. And I would challenge each of you to try to teach, coach, and mentor that next group of great leaders this nation so needs right now. Be a good coach example. Help build the future for America.
So one of the reasons that I came into the National Guard, and this stuck with me, I had a friend of mine that's probably almost 60 years old now, but he said that one of the biggest regrets that he has is he never served in the military. If it is sitting in your head right now that is something that you would be interested in doing, that you want to do, and it's a continual thought, don't get to the point where you can't do it. Don't find yourself at 45 or 50 years old wishing that you would have had the opportunity, because like I talked about earlier, this is something that might be ingrained in the character of your being, and it could be a missed opportunity. At 35 years old, I went through OCS. I was the oldest person in my I-Bullet class out of 141 people. A lot of people probably would have told me that I was too old and that I should have just moved on to different things, but I knew that I want what I wanted to do. If you're thinking about it, I'm telling you, from going from just being an E1 to now being an officer in the military, that it is a rewarding experience, and you will not regret it. I can assure you of that. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to wear this uniform every single day.
Lieutenant Joyner, I know we interviewed you actually last week. I don't think I asked you that question. So if there's one piece of advice that you could offer someone thinking about joining the military, what would it be?
So I would say it's more about who you can serve and not just serving yourself. One of the things that really sticks out to me is I just came back from D.C. Responding to the protest. So we went out there. We got called to go. I answered that call. I went out. And, it was a really tense situation. Our mission was to just ensure that people's right to protest was unaffected. And we went out and we accomplished that. And then what really stuck out to me was the fact that we gave out food in order to kind of like just meet the people and just reach them on a deeper level. I actually went out of my way and gave someone my food. And that
A civilian.
speaks, yep, a civilian.
Perfect.
And it spoke volumes because before that occasion, they were on edge, right? They didn't even want anything to do with us. But I assured them, like, listen, I'm here. I'm just like you. And I want to help you. But, here, take this food. Let me talk to you a bit about, some of the things that I've been through. And it just helped them. They saw us in a different light. So just always think there's a way that you can affect people without actually just while you're in uniform.
Right.
You could just affect people in such a profound way.
You're just here to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and make sure that people get their rights that are inalienable to them, right?
Yep.
That's truly amazing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Again, I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Phippen of IMPD, Lieutenant Michael Leeper of IMPD, and then, of course, Lieutenant Michael Joyner, my co-host. Thank you again for listening to another edition of Not Your Average Joe's podcast. Until next time. Thanks a ton.